Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Chris with InsideTheU. Thanks for stopping by. The number 8 Miami Hurricanes win 42-14 over Wake Forest in their home finale. A great performance all the way around, especially with the defense. I'll get into that. But overall, just this team improves to 10-1. They bounce back from that tough loss against Georgia Tech, where I thought both sides of the ball didn't play nearly well enough, not what they're capable of doing. And I expected this team off a bye week to play well. You know, if you saw my score prediction, I said 45-17. A little bit off on both sides, but I thought both sides of the ball were going to play well in this game. And I thought they did, but it really starts with the defense and what they were able to do. You know, with the 14 points allowed, 7 of it came off on a kickoff return. And those 7 points that they allowed came on that play in the first quarter, the passing touchdown, 36 yards. And I felt like many people watch that play and say, here's that same defense, and they're not going to be good. And it's the reason, you know, everything that, all the criticism. And if you're one that did that, then I think you should absolutely give this team, this defense, praise for how they performed the rest of the game, because it was a masterpiece. Honestly, it really was impressive with what they did. Under 200 yards of total offense by Wake Forest there, under 100 yards rushing allowed, under 100 yards passing. A lot of big-time performers for the Hurricanes. Michelle Powell, you know, had one of the 5 sacks on the day. 5 different players had sacks, tied a season high. It was the most since early on when they played for FAMU. So they got after the quarterback. They put a lot of pressure there, and then also Powell had that pick 6. You know, that it felt like at that point maybe things are going to be a little bit tougher. You know, but the way Wake Forest was driving the ball. But this is what I've been wanting to see from this team. Says red zone defense is not necessarily a pick 6, because that doesn't happen very often, but just make a big play. You know, don't allow a touchdown, don't allow a field goal. You know, if it is a field goal attempt, it is what it is, but make a big play. And I thought that was felt like a turning point in the game. Even though the score was a little bit close, you know, that made it 17-7, and then the kickoff return 17-14. Miami goes into halftime 20-14. I like that field goal that they took right there at the end of the half. I felt like that was good. You know, again, a little bit conservative maybe for some, but I like that. Again, you're a team with everything on the line, which I will get to in a little bit. It's something that was said in the post-game press conference, kind of took me by surprise, but I'll get into that. So again, it's 20-14. Going into the second half there, and Miami's defense in the second half didn't allow a point. Really impressive performance. Once again, I was very impressed with how they played, and I think they deserve a lot of credit. It has not been an easy season for the defense. You know, you see the metrics. You know, you see how they've been playing in ACC play, giving up 31, 32 points a game in ACC competition, and today they were just much better than that. All of the numbers show that. And I think, look, I understand Wake Forest isn't the best offense in the conference, but this is what happened. This is what you want to see against teams like that. And Miami absolutely delivered on defense. You know, that third quarter really stood out to me. Surprisingly, Miami's offense didn't score a point. It's only the second time this year that Miami hasn't scored a point in a quarter. The 3 drives there with the 2 punts, and also the fumble by Restrepo. But the defense really held it together, whether it was a short field or not, you know, whether they kept getting back on the field, because there was a 3 and out in that time. And in that quarter alone, they only allowed 13 total yards on 15 plays. And with that, 2 sacks were in there, but 13 total yards rushing on 13 attempts. Just a highly impressive performance by the defense with how they played. They got after it. A number of guys did that. You saw Mesidor on the outside a little bit more, you know, and he had a sack, so he was doing well. Ruben Bain came up with a sack. That was great to see. You know, I think, you know, Moten came in the second half, had to sit out the first half after being suspended because of the targeting call the week before. He was able to get a sack. Powell had one, as I mentioned, but so 5 different guys with sacks. I just thought that was really good. And stopping the run, that's what Wake Forest wanted to do. And Miami just didn't let them do that. And, you know, and they had clearly been vulnerable at points during the season. Today was not one of those points. Cristobal gave them a lot of praise. I think a lot of people should, because of how they played. And game 11 in the season, I feel like it's very important to do that, to play well. And the offense, clearly 42 points was impressive. They did a good job too. You know, 35 of it obviously coming from their side, and obviously Mish had 1 for the defense. But really impressive if you think about the defense only gave up 7 and scored 7 on their own. Everybody should be giving them credit and praise. You know, with that credit and praise, I think Lance Guidry, defensive coordinator, you know, he deserves a lot of credit, because Mish Powell in the post-game press conference wasn't prompted But he really praised Guidry for the play calls and felt like, oh, that play's going to work and this play's going to work, and it did. And just getting the results, he just brought up Guidry on his own, and it felt like that. It felt like anything that they called, it was working. So certainly Guidry got these guys to play well and play hard and come out with a performance like this. I think it was much needed. I was very curious to see how, this is what I expected now, but I was still very curious of how Miami was going to play in this game, coming off a loss, coming off a bye. Every team in every sport always talks about how anytime you lose a game, you want to get right back out there. Even football, they have to wait a week typically, but Miami had to wait a couple weeks. Maybe some doubts, maybe some things kind of popped in their head, some worry. They did have everything to play for here in these two games, but they didn't. They didn't let any of that bother them. They did come out with arguably their best performance of, certainly for the defense. I know the Florida game, there's been some moments, but with how things have been going, I thought this was just a really, clearly an important time to play well defensively, especially going in next week at Syracuse, a team that throws the ball a lot. I think they'll be ready. They'll be challenged, there's no doubt about it. But I thought Miami needed to have a good game here to kind of set them up for that final game where win at Syracuse and they're in the ACC championship game, which is what they wanted to do all season long. And then offensively, I mentioned the third quarter, a little bit of a struggle, passing the ball. It wasn't anything to be overly concerned about with how they threw the ball. I thought there were some really good moments. Jacoby George, 2 touchdown catches, made some nice tough catches there. Elijah Arroyo was involved. You like to see that. Horton and Restrepo didn't have the involvement that they typically do, but and Cam threw that pick, but it's going to happen. You kind of take it, move on, and it wasn't an issue. And I think with how they threw the ball, I don't think it's a big issue with, it didn't have the big 350 passing yards that they typically been averaging, which leads the country. But running the ball, and again, with how Miami played defensively, with what they put together with running the ball, I thought was impressive. That was not their strength. So for Miami to play well, not to their strengths, I thought it was very impressive. And when I think about the run game, and it goes for over 200, Jordan Lyle, obviously kind of headliner there, gets all those yards late in the game, over 100 yards. But, to me, one of the key runs, I just felt like when it happened, I thought it was great, and then certainly as it played out. But that Mark Fletcher 30-yard run in the fourth quarter felt like it set a tone, that they're going to run the ball and run the ball well. And Martinez, takes that and kind of moves it even closer to the end zone. Now Cam had to punch it in, but I thought Mark's run was just really impressive. You want to see that from power backs late in the game. You want to feel like throughout the game you kind of wear down the opposing team, and then late in the game these power backs keep coming, they keep making plays, and that's what we saw with Mark. And I think it definitely helped with Jordan Lyle. When he got in there, he was able to make some plays because of the work that Martinez and Fletcher were able to do. And I know Martinez's numbers weren't overly impressive, but I just thought as a whole the run game did a great job. And so speaking of the offensive linemen, Jalen Rivers was at the podium talking about senior day and talking about a lot of different things being here. And he definitely felt like this was going to be it. This is going to be his last season at Miami. And for people that don't know, he's classified as a fifth-year junior because the COVID year in 20 and then 21 was a redshirt year because he was injured. So he could come back next year. He has a year of eligibility remaining. So, but I'm listening to him talk at the press conference, and it definitely felt like he was going to be done. So afterwards, I just kind of went up to him and asked him, and I told him, you obviously got a year left, but is this it, kind of thing? And he said, yeah. So he did confirm that, and this is his final year. So just want to put that out there, a little bit of news, but again, the way he spoke, I think everybody would interpret that, and it's not a surprise because he's a guy, again, he's been in the program for a while, has aspirations to the next level, and it's just time to move on, and he will be, and a lot of these guys will be, and you saw a lot of guys out here today playing in their final home game. I saw Restrepo in pregame really seemed to be soaking in the moment, talking with fans, and I'm sure he's a little devastated about that fumble, but they got the win, and that's what matters. They played well, they got the win, and I think a lot of guys should feel good about that on both sides of the ball. So going back to that comment earlier that I wanted to address, and I'm going to address it now because it stood out to me. After the game and post-game interviews at the press conference, Cam Ward said something that really kind of stood out to me, and we'll see how it plays out. And maybe he didn't quite mean it this way, but he said that he feels like this Miami team, has nothing to lose. And his point was, last year's team, we called them mid. Essentially, this year's team has been better. And last year's team wasn't very good, essentially. But I think Miami's got everything to lose. I think that everything is still to play for. We're talking about a program looking for its first ACC title. And I think anybody that watches this team, I think this is why the reaction is the way it is, even after wins. I think people are concerned. Like, they see all the positives. I see it too. And you just don't want all the positives to slip away. You don't want to see it slip away with an opportunity. All you have to do at this point to win at Syracuse, and you're going to be in the ACC championship game just for the second time. And going into it, likely you're going to face SMU. And with that, you have a chance to get to the college football playoff for the first time. This program has opportunities to do things that they've not been able to do before. And I think that with that, and with the teams that they're going to be playing, I think Miami has everything to lose. I absolutely think that. So I hope Cam and the rest of the team is not looking at it like they've already accomplished a lot. And they certainly have. And I kind of want to make sure I get this point across clear. They've still had a successful season, regardless of how it finishes. A 10-win season, being in the top 10 in the country for most of the year is very impressive. They only have the one loss. They've had a very successful season. Yes, it's been better than the year before. And I'm not one to disregard that. In a 10-win season, again, it's only the second time since 2003. So it is impressive what they've been able to do. But ever since that first week of the college football season, Miami has vaulted to the top of the ACC as being a favorite. They've been the highest ranked team in the ACC and the AP poll for most of the season, essentially right after that first week. So all the expectations for Miami to win the conference, to at least get to Charlotte. Also, after that first week, with how Florida State played and beating Florida, you now stake your claim as the best team in the state. That was the expectations. And they go and beat Florida State later on in the year, beat USF along the way. And look, I think the expectations have been there for this team. And this wasn't a surprise. They were ranked in the top 25. They moved up very quickly, one of the highest risers early in the season. A lot of expectations for this team. They were picked third coming into the year in the ACC. So just right there. This wasn't a team that was bottom of the conference and they're out here surprising everybody majorly or anything like that. So again, they've got everything to play for. And if they do play SMU, if they do get to Charlotte, you want to talk about a team with nothing to lose. SMU making the jump to the ACC in its first year in the conference as a previous group of 5 team, they've got nothing to lose. That program, Miami will be expected to win. So just wrapping this up, I think today's performance should give this team a lot of confidence moving forward in this final game at Syracuse. They understand what's at stake. I was just thinking this is my last game of Hard Rock. Miami could play here as the stadium does host the national semifinal game. Miami could be in that bracket depending on how it shakes out. So maybe they'll be back. But if not, yeah, it's been a great season here. Looking forward to covering more games for the team. I think they've got more in stake, and just kind of seeing all the workers. And I wasn't able to be on the field. I was there flipping the field to get ready for the Dolphins game. And earlier, after a night game, I asked one of the workers that does flip the field and get it ready for the next game, how soon or how long does this all take? And he said, after a night game, by 5 a.m. they kind of wrap up, and they feel like that kind of pushes the envelope. And with the Dolphins game at 1, players start getting on the field around 8. So definitely a lot of work with everybody around the stadium getting ready for the next game. So thanks for watching. Drop in the comments below. Let me know what you like, what you didn't like about this team. Let me know what you thought of today's game. I want to thank you for your support. Thanks for watching. Have a good rest of the weekend, and take care.